everyone. Welcome back to Wolf Talk. This is episode 3. Today we are here with Grace Vera, WCRE's Director of Property Management. Thanks for coming on Wolf Talk, Grace.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to get a little bit of an intro, kind of give your journey, how you got here, what led you to WCRE.
Yeah, so previously I worked for a private investor. He had a lot of commercial real estate in South Jersey, and I managed his buildings for him. I actually ended up hiring WCRE as our broker. Phil Costa did all the leasing for our properties, and he also sold one of our buildings. And then through him, I developed a connection with WCRE. And then a few years later, here I am.
I love it. That's actually how I met Grace, was through Phil, going to one of the properties to get pictures. So I actually met her before she came, which was kind of fun and interesting little tidbit. Can you give me some background on your experience and why property management over like commercial real estate or anything that you were like navigating, like what you went to school for, things like that?
Yeah, of course. So I actually was in a completely different sector prior to property management. I was in the energy industry, specifically the international energy industry. So I worked for an energy company and had business meetings with people all across the world. I say that because I think it's very important to where I am today. I would have meetings with people in all different countries in Europe, the Middle East, parts of Asia. And I think it quickly taught me that there are so many different types of people in the world, and interacting with them is one of my favorite things. Coming in contact with new people, talking to different people every day, whether they're similar to you or very different.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into property management, because in property management, you're dealing with hundreds of people a day.
And you were dealing with all different types of walks of life, different types of properties,
Correct.
management styles, what their needs are, things like that.
Yeah, and you even just learn the way that people communicate is differently. The needs of people are different.
Right.
And if you can figure out how people work and how they function, you're able to accommodate them and make them happier. So that definitely segues into property management when you have hundreds of different tenants that all have different needs, different communication styles, different wants. And if you can cater to that, I think it makes for a successful property manager.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about that. What does a successful property manager look like? What does your day entail? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, so I guess it's hard to walk you through a day because the one thing about property management is that you never know what your day has in store for you. You can come into the office and think that you know exactly what you're going to do that day. You're not.
Yeah.
You're likely going to do some of the things you have to get done.
Right.
And we do have structure and processes and, weekly things that we have to do, monthly things, but the day to day, it gets disrupted.
Yeah.
Property management is a pretty reactive business. I might come in and think I'm doing a few things and then something happens. We might have an emergency at a property. We might have a leasing conflict that comes up. So things just change on a daily basis. But in general, we basically manage buildings for their owners. We manage everything so that the owners don't have to worry about that. So whether it's the financial health of the building,
right,
how much money the building has, the maintenance of the building. We work with the leasing teams to go over renewals and vacancies. We do construction projects for the building. So
and like project management. I know we were doing that at one of our buildings
correct.
Recently.
So it's basically everything all encompassing of what it takes to run a building, we manage.
And you also can do that a la carte, right? Like, so like, let's say they just need management over like finances. We just do that if that's all they need, or if they just need management of the building itself, like we do that as well, right? It's kind of like a la carte.
Correct.
Would you say? Okay.
So I would say of our properties, a lot of them we do full service, which means everything from A to Z, kind of what I just laid out. But we do offer our services a la carte. So some buildings we only do facilities and maintenance for because an owner might have a different asset manager or they might do that in-house. Some buildings we only do the financials for, but we might not do the maintenance because they have an in-house maintenance tech.
Right.
So it's different and varies.
That's really cool. So I know that you mentioned a little bit about, processes and operations and how your day-to-day is always changing. And, the cheese essentially is always moving on your plate. what are you utilizing and what strategies are you implementing to navigate through your day-to-day changes? And what are you utilizing for your team to do that as well?
Yeah, so like I was saying, property management's very reactive. Because of that, we have to have a lot of procedures and processes in place that allow us to be proactive where we can. Um, Whether that's with preventative maintenance to get ahead of problems before they snowball into bigger ones, whether it's checking rent rolls quarterly to make sure that no one's leases are expiring
Right.
until it's too late. Uh, those are just simple things as a quick example. How we have procedures in place so that we can get ahead. The more we can get ahead and be proactive, the less that the reactive emergency
Right.
situations affect us.
Right. And are you utilizing any type of, technology, AI? Things are constantly shifting. In 2025, like tech and AI has been such a huge factor in every like facet of business. How does that implement with property management?
Yeah, so technology is huge for us, both in the office and at our properties. Um, Whether it's our accountant using accounting software that auto populates rent invoices that we just need to double check or add things to, and it shoots it out via email. So everyone knows what their rent is every month or when they
Right.
have an increase. Um, or even the technology that we have at the buildings. Um, I can pull up on my cell phone all of the security cameras for all of the buildings that we manage. That's something that you probably couldn't do 10, 15 years
Right.
ago.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then even with like HVAC systems, a lot of our buildings have pretty advanced technology. And I can also go on from my computer and change the temperature in tenant suites. So if we have a maintenance request where a tenant is too hot or too cold, we can go on and change it for them remotely. That's
Yeah,
another
if you don't have
just
to drive out, waste the time, drive out there, get there, change it, and
correct.
then that's awesome.
It
That's
just
actually really
makes,
cool.
yeah, it makes everything more efficient. So we can get quicker, we can respond to tenants in a more efficient manner. And yeah.
That's awesome. I know that you mentioned a little bit about like leasing and being able to see when someone's lease expires. How does that implement with our brokerage? Like, are you working with them? How does that complement one another, especially being like property management? They're both in commercial real estate, but what does that look like for you?
So having property management and brokerage under one roof is ideal. We really go hand in hand with one another. Property managers, I like to say, have the answer key for the tests that brokers take. Whether a broker is working on a lease renewal or if they want to even sell the building, the owner, we have a lot of the answers that are needed to do so.
Like the rent roll, things
Correct.
like that.
Whether it's what their CAM charges are, their rent roll, if their electric is sub-metered, maintenance things that may come up that a tenant might want into their new lease amendment. All of those things that are going to be talked about between the broker, the tenant, and the landlord, we have the answers to. So it just is seamless when we all work together.
That's awesome. I didn't know that actually. So that's kind of
Really?
interesting. Like really thinking about it, like I've always thought about on like the rent roll side, but I never thought about it from like an overall standpoint of even like, I don't know, changing the leasing around when it comes to an amendment and things like that, like fit outs and stuff like that as well. So it's kind of interesting to really take a deep dive into that.
Yeah, and you brought up fit outs. That's a huge thing for us too. So if a tenant is going to renew their lease and they need to make changes, whether it's just new flooring and paint or they're expanding their office into the suite next door, we manage those projects.
Right.
So we need to know what's going on. We need to know what the expectations of the tenant are, what the landlord is agreeing to, the deal basically that the broker is putting together. Because once the broker and the landlord and everyone signs off on it, it falls onto our plate
Right.
in a good way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. Because you mentioned fit outs and we kind of talked a little bit about like different leasing and things like that, are there any like projects that have come up recently that you're really proud of?
Yeah, two come to mind actually. The first one is a building that we manage. And to say this lightly, the lobby was stuck in the 70s.
Mm.
It was original to the building. It had never been updated. I don't even think the carpet was ever updated. So recently, we worked with the owner of the building to completely renovate the lobby and the first floor cafe area, basically just to bring it to life, modernize it, make it
Yeah,
more attractive for new tenants. That was a big project for us, and I think it really showed some new ideas that we can bring to the table
yeah.
as a young, driven, hungry property management team. And then the second project that comes to mind is a new government Veterans Affair building. The VA recently just built a brand new building in Toms River, New Jersey.
And that's like 70,000 square feet, right?
Correct. 2 stories, brand new. And we worked side by side with the developers towards the end of the project, and they handed over the building to us in a maintenance aspect. So we've been managing that building, which has been phenomenal. And also because of that, it opened new doors for us. The
Right.
developers actually referred us to another government-owned building, and we are now managing that one as well.
So that's a great way for like expansion, but cultivating those relationships, and not only like the project, side of it and working with the developers, but you had mentioned the previous property. You also mentioned like capturing new tenants, but it's a great way to also retain those tenants that are currently there as well. I don't think that a lot of owners necessarily always think like that. Like sometimes you have to put out a little bit more to get that final, piece back, that rewarding piece back. So it's pretty interesting to hear, and it's great to hear because it shows that you guys are actually growing. So that's awesome.
Correct. Tenants want to see change, and it comes down to that.
Yeah.
Tenants want to see that the landlord is making changes to the building, making upgrades, and they're not just going to be in the same building for 20 years and it's not going to look exactly the same.
Right. Absolutely.
We evolve as people. Why can't our buildings evolve too?
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's also cool, like even from like going from the tenant side, building that new VA building, building that for people that have served our country. That must have been such an honor to be able to have that and to be able to say that you guys are managing now 2 of those types of buildings, which is really cool.
Yeah, that was special for our team. WCRE, we're really big on giving back. We have a charity within our organization. So it was great to work side by side with the VA, and we went to their ribbon cutting ceremony. There were a lot of political leaders from New Jersey that attended it, and it was just a sense of pride that we aren't only just managing a building, but we're helping people and we're making a difference. And the people that utilize this building need help.
They need it the most.
To be a part of that is special for us as an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Switch it up a little bit here. I would love to get your input on being a young professional, any advice that you can give to other young professionals, especially females, entering into leadership roles or trying to go into a leadership role.
I would say my biggest piece of advice is to never turn down an opportunity. A lot of young professionals, especially women, will shy away from an opportunity because it's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You might think, I have no idea what I'm doing. You might think, I don't know enough about that, so I'm not going to take that on. That is the wrong mindset. You learn from experience, and everything that you learn is just adding to your arsenal. Knowledge is power, experience is power, and I would just say go for it. There's nothing to lose.
Yeah, there's nothing holding you back. Your message was really powerful. Knowledge is power. How is that something that you utilized in a male-dominated industry? What experiences have you had, or if you've had any at all, being in a male-dominated industry that has shaped who you are today?
Yeah, it's funny. I think that in a male-dominated industry, women are often overlooked or underestimated, and I almost think that's great sometimes. I mean, in my head, I just say, let them underestimate me. I know my worth. I know my skill. I know my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can show that to them, which I will in my day-to-day job, it just stops them right in their tracks. So at the end of the day, if you are a woman in a male-dominated field, let them underestimate you because you'll only succeed even more.
Yeah, that's like your superpower almost. You're utilizing it to your benefit.
It is.
I really love that. That's a great way. And if you haven't checked it out, I don't know if you ever heard of the let them theory, but it's actually really interesting. So it's funny that you said that. I just finished it. And basically what it is you're letting people be who they are. You're letting people behave the way that they do, allowing them to for example, in a male-dominated industry, you're allowing them to underestimate you, and then you're taking that and you're applying it to your everyday life of, well, they can go and think that, but I'm going to go and be 10 times better, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to show out, and I'm going to be me. And it actually provides so much more confidence within yourself. So it's a great way to put it, is just let them.
I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we touched base on a lot of different things regarding property management and women in a male dominated industry. I appreciate you coming on, Grace. Thank you so much. Stay tuned, and we look forward to having you guys again for episode 4.